Do you even know what you're going to get with managed IT services? You could be overpaying. In this video, I'm going to help break it down and uncover the real costs of managed IT services and what you don't want to miss. Hello, and welcome to this video series that helps you navigate critical IT decisions and use IT services to your advantage. I'm Justin Eckstein, and I bring about 2 decades of IT experience to the table, half of which has been spent deep in the world of managed IT services. It seems that pricing for managed IT services is a huge mystery, and nobody seems to do it the same way. How can we compare apples to oranges, and how do we know that we're getting what we need at the right price? First, it's probably best to just recap the different types of IT support models out there. One of the oldest models of IT support is simply break fix, where you're paying by the hour for support. That's pretty straightforward, and you kind of know what you're getting. You're just paying by the hour. It's very reactive. There is a reason that managed IT services exist anymore. The break fix model simply doesn't cut it for your average business because technology is critical to what we do. There are also project services where you might pay a fixed fee to accomplish a certain goal. Again, there is little mystery to this model. Another item that you'll come across would be consultation services. Here the waters can start to muddy a little bit because you're usually paying some kind of fixed fee on a regular basis. But often these services are meant to provide guidance rather than actual fingers hitting the keyboard. And then there's managed IT services. Most models with managed IT services will bill by either the number of devices or the employees or just a mixture of the two. We'll get into why this is later on in the episode, and oftentimes it can be unclear as to what exactly you're getting with the price tag. If you haven't had any exposure to selecting the right managed IT partner for your business before, you might find that it can quickly feel overwhelming. Nobody seems to price it the same, so how do you really know that you're getting a good deal, or more importantly, the right deal for you? Let's demystify that a little bit. I've had many small businesses come to me just looking for help in understanding what these different quotes mean, and it can be hard to make heads or tails of it sometimes. So let's talk about the different pricing models in managed IT services that we typically come across. Before we get too deep into the weeds, one thing that's critical to understand is that you should be spending around 3 to 5% of your annual revenue on technology as a whole. So that would include IT support services in that number, as well as things like your workstations and equipment. So keep that in mind when you're evaluating pricing, just as kind of a guideline. Oftentimes businesses are underspending on technology and managed services, and then they're left wondering why their support stinks or why they were breached. One of the most common pricing options is a user-based approach, where it's billed by the supported employee. Oftentimes this includes various tools like email security or endpoint protection, kind of wrapped together with support services to make the billing a little less confusing. This can be useful as it's easier to understand your costs as you grow your business and add staffing, because it's just kind of align with the number of employees that you have. And typically this option will land in the $100 to $250 per user range, depending on a number of factors. I know that's kind of a wide range, but we'll kind of get into the details of how that range can be affected going forward. Another option on the flip side is to base it off of the number of devices that are supported, such as computers, servers, or tablets. Like the user-based model, you'll typically have some help desk support wrapped together with some licensing and tool costs. Usually you will see this per unit price as a little lower because we often have more devices than actual people. So maybe more in the $50 to $150 per device range would be common to be seen. It's also common to see a blend of these two options, not to confuse things. And that's where you might have a line item that captures licensing and support costs that are specific to an employee's identity, and another line item that's specific to maybe the devices that they use. And those prices will kind of just land in the middle of those two options because it's kind of a blend. These different pricing models can make it hard to compare. At the end of the day, you need to understand what's most important to you and make sure that you have a complete understanding of how the provider that you're working with will deliver on that. Some providers will have different tiers of pricing that might have a basic and a standard and an advanced level of a solution kind of packaged together. This can often be useful if you have more basic needs or if you need more advanced protection options, and it can be easier to understand what is and what isn't included. I think one thing to understand here, though, is that oftentimes when providers have a basic package, there are probably some pretty big things missing just to make the price tag a little bit more appealing. Oftentimes there might be hidden labor costs or important security measures that get skipped. So make sure that you ask questions about what's important to you so that you have a clear understanding of really what's happening with this proposal. Too often I see people regret the decision that they make just because it appeared that it would save a buck at first glance, and then they end up paying more down the road. And of course, most pricing models will have items that fall outside of the standard support bucket. And in those cases, you can expect to pay some kind of hourly rate or a project fee depending on the circumstances. It's usually anywhere from $100 to $300 per hour, depending on the level of work and your region. This is a really important consideration because these fees are often hidden costs that can really sway what you're paying. A common example is setting up a computer for an employee. Some providers charge a fee for this, while others simply include it as part of their monthly services. If you have a lot of change in your environment, maybe you're adding or removing a lot of employees or computers, that can be a big deal. Make sure you understand what common requests you have that would be included or excluded, as well as what their associated fee would be. Next, I want to cover what influences the price of managed IT services. One common example of this would simply be the size of your business. Generally, when you have more employees, you can get a little bit better per unit pricing due to the scale. But to piggyback on this, it's important to understand that some managed IT providers will only want to work with certain sizes of businesses and may or may not have a package that's right for you and your business. Another factor is the complexity of infrastructure. Naturally, a more complex environment is going to take more effort to support and monitor and manage, and will therefore often influence what must be charged for support. Another good example is maybe your needs for compliance. If you are in an industry that needs to meet more regulations and you undergo a lot of audits, that often can lead to more controls and tools that need to be in place in order to make your environment more secure, for example. And that can increase your environment complexity, which can of course influence price due to licensing or increased support needs. Another important one to consider are service levels. So if you're getting basic 9 to 5 support, that will generally cost less than if you were paying for 24/7 support services that includes after hours and weekends and holidays and that kind of thing. On-site versus remote support is also worth considering. The ability to have on-site support might be important to you, but if not, remote only might be an option and maybe a way to save a few bucks. And of course, geographic location. Naturally the cost of living in your area will greatly influence price, and it might also influence how easy it is for certain providers to actually service you in person. The key thing to understand when it comes to what to expect for pricing with managed IT services is that you must first set an expectation for what you want included and clearly communicate that to who you're working with. As we've laid out, there are multiple factors that will influence the end result pricing as well as what you're actually going to be delivered. Thanks for watching today's video. If you're interested in discussing how we might help you with the right services for your business, click the link in the description and we'd be happy to help.